Before the world knew her as Maya Angelou, the voice of resilience, poetry, and power, she was just a little girl named Marguerite, learning how cruel the world could be. Born in 1928 in St. Louis, Maya's earliest memories were shaped by instability. When her parents' marriage collapsed, she and her beloved brother Bailey were sent, unaccompanied by train, to live with their grandmother in the segregated town of Stamps, Arkansas. For a child so young, that journey felt like exile, and it wouldn't be the last time she'd be uprooted. Life in Stamps exposed Maya to the harsh reality of racism and the isolation of being seen as different. But even more painful was what happened years later during a visit back to her mother's home, an experience so devastating that Maya stopped speaking altogether. For nearly 5 years, she refused to talk to anyone except her brother. It was as though her voice had been buried under layers of guilt and fear. To the outside world, she was silent. But inside, her thoughts roared. In that silence, Maya turned to literature. Books became her sanctuary, her survival. The pain she couldn't speak about began transforming into something else, something stronger. The seed of her voice, the one that would one day move generations, had already begun to grow. Maya Angelou didn't speak for 5 years. But that silence wasn't empty. It was filled with listening, watching, and becoming. After the trauma that silenced her, Maya retreated inward. Words, which once felt safe, now felt dangerous. She spoke only to her brother Bailey, the one person she trusted completely. To everyone else, she was mute. But inside, her world was alive. She began to read voraciously. From Shakespeare to Dickens, from Black poets to ancient philosophers, Maya devoured every book she could find. Her grandmother's home, though modest, became her sanctuary of imagination. The library became her cathedral. Words were no longer something to fear. They became her salvation. Maya once described those silent years as the moment she fell in love with language. She studied the way people spoke, the rhythms of speech, the emotions hidden between lines. She didn't need to talk. She was absorbing the world with an intensity few could understand. Her teachers and mentors started to notice. One in particular, a kind woman named Mrs. Bertha Flowers, gently challenged Maya. She gave her poetry, invited her to read aloud, and slowly, patiently, helped her rediscover the courage to speak. And one day, Maya did. The silence was over, but it had changed her forever. It gave her a voice with purpose, a voice born not of noise but of reflection, pain, and deep understanding. The day Maya Angelou spoke again, it wasn't just a return to sound, it was a resurrection. The words came slowly at first, uncertain and delicate, like stepping back into sunlight after years in the dark. But once she opened her mouth, something deeper followed. A voice rich with thought, observation, and quiet power. It was Mrs. Bertha Flowers who guided her back. A refined, elegant woman in Stamps, Mrs. Flowers recognized Maya's brilliance and refused to let it wither in silence. She gave Maya books, poetry, and speeches, not just to read, but to feel. She read aloud to her and eventually asked Maya to return the favor. Maya was terrified, but as she began to recite the words, something inside her clicked. The rhythm of poetry, the way it could express the unspeakable, felt like breathing. In poetry, she found a mirror for her pain and a path forward. This was more than recovery. It was transformation. Speaking again didn't erase her trauma, but it gave her the tools to begin shaping it. Words, once her burden, had become her power. Her silence had taught her how to listen. Now she would learn how to speak, not just for herself, but for others like her. A voice had returned, and it would never be ignored again. Maya's voice was back, but the world was still unkind. As she entered adulthood, Maya Angelou faced a mountain of hardship. She was a single mother before she turned 20, struggling to make ends meet while raising her son, Guy. Jobs were scarce, money was tight, and the odds were stacked against her. But Maya didn't let the weight of circumstance crush her spirit. She worked relentlessly, cooking, waiting tables, even streetcar operating, the first Black woman to do so in San Francisco. When survival demanded creativity, she turned to the stage. Dance and music became her lifeline. She performed in nightclubs, toured internationally as a calypso singer, and found herself drawn to the expressive force of performance. Each movement, each lyric, each poem, Maya was shaping her pain into something beautiful. Her travels led her to Africa, where she lived for several years, working as a journalist and immersing herself in political movements. She was searching for identity, for meaning, and in doing so she was finding her voice again, this time stronger, wiser, deeper. The world still saw her as a performer, but something bigger was forming beneath the surface. The woman who had once lived in silence was preparing to roar. All the years of heartbreak, loss, and survival weren't scars. They were her story, and soon she would write it. In 1969, Maya Angelou sat down to write the story that no one else dared to tell. The result was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, a memoir that tore open the silence of Black womanhood and laid her pain bare for the world to see. It was raw. It was honest. It was revolutionary. For the first time, readers were given an unfiltered view into the life of a young Black girl growing up in the racially divided South, enduring trauma, and reclaiming her voice. Maya didn't shy away from the hardest truths. She embraced them, knowing that others needed to see that survival was possible, that beauty could rise from brutality. The book shocked many. Some schools banned it. Critics debated its frankness, but the public responded with thunderous applause. It climbed bestseller lists and shattered the idea that literature had to be neat or comfortable. Maya had written more than a memoir. She had written a manifesto of survival. Suddenly, the girl who once believed her voice could destroy now realized her voice could heal. Through her words, she gave countless people permission to speak their truth. Her pen was not just a tool. It was a weapon against silence, shame, and invisibility. Maya Angelou became more than a poet or an author. She became a cultural force, a literary warrior whose pain became power and whose story echoed in the hearts of millions. Maya Angelou didn't just leave behind books. She left behind a blueprint for courage. As her fame grew, so did her impact. She became a trusted voice in politics, activism, and art. Presidents sought her counsel. Students studied her lines. When she spoke at Bill Clinton's inauguration in 1993, delivering On the Pulse of Morning, her voice didn't just echo through the Capitol. It echoed across history. She stood tall as a Black woman who had faced unthinkable pain and transformed it into poetry, into pride, into purpose. Her words became lifelines for those in the shadows. Survivors, dreamers, outcasts, people who saw in her story the hope that they too could rise. But Maya Angelou never claimed perfection. She was honest about her wounds, her doubts, her past. That's what made her timeless. She didn't just tell people to be brave. She showed them how to be brave through her own scars. When she passed away in 2014, the world lost a voice, but not her message. Her spirit lives on in the rhythms of protest chants, in classroom recitations, in whispered encouragements between generations. She once wrote, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." And she never was. Maya Angelou's legacy is more than literature. It's living proof that silence can be broken, pain can be spoken, and one voice, however wounded, can change the world.